Hello everyone, this is your host, Deidre Davis. Coming up next is a new episode of Black Nerds Matter. On this show we get real experiences, thoughts, and advice from different black professionals in the world of STEM. Stay tuned at WMNF Radio for more. Come for the science, stay for the nerds. Hello everyone, welcome to Black Nerds Matter. Back with your boy, Deidre Davis. Joining us on today's episode is Teja Deonarine, a marine biology graduate with a passion for conservation. She's worked with major aquariums like New York, Virginia, and Mystic Aquariums, contributed to initiatives with the Hudson River Project, and even uses her platform as a mermaid performer to promote sustainability and ocean conservation. Hey, Teja, how you doing?
Hi, how are you? I'm doing well.
All right, I'm excited to have you today. I mean, we haven't had any mermaids on the podcast before, so this is a first for us. So you ready to get into the questions?
Of course.
Okay, perfect. So, what was your background like? Like, where'd you grow up? What was family life like? Where are you from?
So I came from I come from a family of immigrants. My mother was an immigrant from England. Her family is from Jamaica, but she was born in England and came down here when she was in middle school. And then my father is Trinidadian and Guyanese, and he came here when he was in his early 20s. And so both of my parents are well versed in their own ways. My mother is a social worker who is a college graduate. My father is a self-employed contractor. And so I've come from a very hardworking, very goal-oriented family. And I originally grew up in New York.
Okay, so you grew up in New York. Where do you live now?
So now I currently live in Massachusetts. I recently moved from Virginia, which has been a great leap for me. That's how I ended up at the Mystic Aquarium, which I absolutely loved the move and loved the job there.
Okay, awesome. So grew up in New York, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, so with all the hustle and bustle and all of that, how was that growing up there? I mean, I've been there before. I used to live in Pennsylvania, but I can't imagine being there all the time. What was that like?
Yeah, it's funny because it's like I'm one of the rare gems of New Yorkers that hate New York. I appreciate growing up there, and it gave me such a sense of like independence, and it really gauged my whole. So growing up in New York, it gave me a great sense of individuality and a great sense of like individualism. I was able to really gain some skills and network and build by myself and know how to do things by myself and speak for myself and advocate, which really helped me when it came to marine biology. Because it is hard for marine biologists in general, but it is very hard for marine biologists that are also females. So it was a very interesting experience, and it was a very enlightening time growing up, especially as a teenager in the city, having to try to like kind of figure out my own because it's a hustle and bustle state, and so everybody's working. My parents usually were working all day, and so I kind of had to figure it out for myself most of the time, which was fun.
So you love the bodega and the deli, huh?
Yep. Love my bacon, egg, and cheese in the morning.
So yeah, you mentioned marine biology. What got you into that? I mean, I haven't met very many marine biologists from New York, and even then, I don't think I know anyone who swam in New York, like in the beaches you guys have. So, how'd you get into marine science?
So, from a young age, my mom she was a proactive parent. She really wanted us to figure out what we wanted to do at a very young age. And it's always funny because she always told us she's a social worker. And although she loves her job, it is a very strenuous job. And so she made it a very big deal, especially at a younger age, to figure out what we wanted to do, what path we wanted to go on so we could start early and get our career started from a really young age. And so she would take us pretty much anywhere. I remember going to like the Science Museum and the Aerospace Museum and the Brooklyn Children's Museum, which has a bunch of like awesome like exploratory ventures for like careers and what do you want to do. And then she took us to the Long Island Aquarium. And the first time we actually went snorkeling with lemon sharks and juvenile hammerheads. And that was the actual first time that I've seen a shark. I had researched sharks and I had tons of books on sharks, but I never actually saw a shark in person. And I absolutely fell in love with them. And then the second time we actually went on a boat tour there. And I can't remember all the animals they talked about, but I distinctly remember them talking about horseshoe crabs and their mating and how important they are to us for medical practices, as well as how important they are for the ecosystem. And I just absolutely fell in love with conservation and marine biology. And I it just like clung to me. And since I was a young kid, I've always been a water baby. My mom always likes to tell the story. When I was about 6 or 7, my older sister was supposed to be watching me. And my mom looked away for 2 seconds, and my sister came up to her and was like, Taja's gone. And she's like, well, where's Teja? Teja's sitting at the bottom of the pool in the 8 foot, just blowing bubbles. And so from that time on, she knew, she was like, okay, this girl is going to be some type of water baby. She's going to be in the water some type of way. And it shaped my whole personality and my whole view on the ocean and the environment. And I literally do everything in water. I'm a swim instructor, I'm a mermaid, and I'm a marine biologist educator. And so it's like my water was my calling. It's what I was put on this earth to do.
Okay, so how did growing up in New York, especially this busy city with all these people working and doing things, then having your immigrant family who's working hard as well, how did all that affect your work ethic and get you to be where you are now?
I learned from a really young age that things won't be handed to you unless you ask for them. And so from a really young age, I learned to ask the questions no one else was asking. I learned to ask to help people where no one else was helping. And that really gave me a leg up in life because from a really young age, I knew how to network. I knew how to talk to people, to get into the right rooms, to get into the right opportunities. And so it really drove me in the right direction when it came to marine biology, because when I was growing up in New York, I didn't see anybody who wanted to do science in general. I didn't see anybody who wanted to do environmental education or environmental conservation or even marine science. I felt really alone in that sense, but the community that I had around me really drove me to keep going, to keep pushing my passion. And I think that was so helpful, especially in the hustle bustle of New York, because there is so many things going around and there's so many opportunities you can get that sometimes it feels a little clouded. And so grounding myself and really making sure that I had the community that was accepting of me, of what I wanted to do, even though sometimes they didn't understand exactly what marine science was, they were always there to support.
So I love the fact that you say you like to ask the question no one else asks because I think about myself in that capacity when I have someone talking to me about a job or whatever. Like for instance, I was working with Ocean X this summer and they were like, "Oh yeah, we make money doing this and this and that." And I'm like, "Okay, how much money do you guys make?" And everybody's like, you're not really supposed to ask that question." And I'm like, "Well, I mean, like I want to know." And then everyone that I'm working with is telling me after the fact, "Yeah, we all wanted to ask too, we just didn't." And I'm like, and I'm just a person that I like to ask that. So I feel like someone has to at some point, you know.
Of
So
course.
I love to hear that from you. But you know, we're all nerds here. Black nerds matter. So what makes you a nerd? How do you feel like
And
you're nerdy? What kind of things do you do that's dorky?
am a dork in every stance you can think of. I attribute that to my ADD. I literally, I'm a science nerd. I'm also a Broadway nerd. And I find every excuse to talk about fish. If you bring up the birds, I'm like, cormorants are cute and they live in the sea. So I try to get my friends and family involved in what I'm doing. If I love taking new courses and new challenges to get me further in the environmental science field, not only in marine science, but just in nature in general. I just recently joined a bird watching group here, and I go around with a bunch of old men and old ladies and look for birds, and it's the coolest thing ever. And they're all like, "Why are you here?" And I'm like, "I love people, I love birds, it's so cool."
I love you mentioned cormorants. I see them sometimes. I've seen them diving before, and we call them scuba chickens. So that's funny that when you
So
you see a
cool.
bird, especially when you see a bird at the bottom, you never see them. They're just kicking their feet, not flapping. It's
Mhm.
one of the funniest things you'll ever see. And so
No.
I know you've worked with River Project and the Hudson River Project conservation initiatives. Can you tell me more about that and what your role is in that? Because I've never heard of that before. What is that?
Yeah, so I'm actually wearing the River Project shirt. And so this is from the Hudson River Project. It's a really cool organization that even a lot of people know about that live in New York. And so I always like to bring it up and always encourage people to go over there, especially during the summer. So during the summer, they open up an educational estuary where you're able to just walk inside. It's free for all people to just walk inside and take a tour of the building. And so during the summer, what they do is they house a lot of the animals that they actually collect from their barge that are from the Hudson River. And one of the popular misconceptions of the Hudson River is that, so New Yorkers call it the Gonorrhea River. Um, yeah, because they say that it, like, even if you stick your toe in it, you're going to get some type of disease. And a lot of scientists are trying to break that misconception and break that understanding that the Hudson River has been polluted for a really long time. And that was due to human intervention, but we're working on it. And one of the greatest things about that whole program is they work with the Billion Oyster Project, which is another really great organization within New York that works on oyster farms. And so we work a lot with them. We also work with a bunch of grad students in the area from Brooklyn College to SUNY colleges. And we work with them on their grad program. So while they were there, while I was interning there, they had a blue crab grad student coming that was working on the sizes of blue crabs and the biodiversity and different areas within the Hudson River and how that ecosystem was affecting the size of the blue crabs, which I thought was completely awesome. And then I found one of my top favorite animals while I was working there. A grad student was also working on a mating program for oyster toadfish. And have you ever seen an oyster toadfish?
No,
They're
I've seen the frogfish.
I'd recommend looking them up. They are the ugliest, cutest animals you will ever see in your life. And the reason why they're called oyster toadfish is because they do like to use oyster reefs as their habitat. It gives them a really good place to mate and also to forage for food. And they also croak like toads. And that's how they mate. And their croak can actually span about, I believe, 10 feet in the water, which I think is absolutely amazing. And so I got to work and listen to a bunch of different mating croaks from oyster toadfish, and I got to collect them and take data collection on them, which was super awesome. And so it's a really awesome organization that helps educate the New Yorkers and tourists about what's going on in their own city. And I know
What was your? Oh, okay. I was gonna say. So what has been the reaction to people when you're showing them these facts, like other New Yorkers, and when you're communicating this stuff? What's the average New York response to something like this?
So sadly, the average response is, I didn't know there was life down there. And
Wow.
I just like, it blows my mind every single time because I had people come in as small as like toddlers to people as older adults, and they have the same response. They're like, this came from the Hudson River? Are they surviving down there? How they're surviving down there? And like, you have to educate them about, yes, it's polluted, but it's not as polluted as you think it is. And scientists in New York are doing a really, really good job of trying to make the water quality better and better every single year. And most of that is due to the amount of oysters that we're putting back into the environment. Because at one time, Virginia and New York were the leading distributors of oysters. And that was because we just had so much. And then as we started diminishing the population, the water started getting worse. And so now what we're trying to do is bring all of those oysters back to their home so they can do their job. And so I love just seeing the shock on people's faces when they see a seahorse. They're like, that seahorse came from the Hudson River? I'm like, yes, it did. And there's tens and thousands of them down there. And one of the coolest things that I got to experience while I was there was actually a pregnant seahorse. And so I saw this seahorse give babies and saw all these babies just coming out. And it was the awesomest thing I've ever seen. And it's just such a cool experience to like show that to other people coming into the facility and experiencing the same thing we were, and seeing the shock on their face and just like the amazement of what's actually down there and what life can produce down there.
So you eat oysters?
I'm a seafood baby, but oysters are not my salty rock to deal with. I don't know. They're too greeny, like grainy for me. I can taste all the salt and all the pollution coming into them, and it's like it's not my deal. But to everybody's each his own. I like mussels.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like oysters either. They just, to me, it was just salty, extremely salty meat. I mean, like I had them cooked,
Mhm.
had them raw, and it was just like, this is not my jam. I mean, I don't really eat shellfish like that much to begin with, but I was like, oysters are definitely, they're not on my list for stuff
Yeah.
that I want.
I think they're so cool to the point where like I have so much respect for them. I'm like, I'm gonna let you stay over there. I'm gonna let you do your thing in the ocean.
Yeah, I definitely have some animals I like too much that I'd never eat, like being in from Florida, and alligators. I know some people who eat them and stuff like that. I can never eat an alligator. I can never eat a bear. I can never eat like a shark. I like those animals too much to do those things. So I can see what you mean from that.
Yeah, I thought that.
Okay, so what are some of the challenges you faced in the roles working with the Hudson River program? I mean, I know you said people were like, "Oh, there's actually life down there," but what are some other challenges that have come along with that, and what are some great breakthroughs you've had with that program?
So, when I was working there, I worked there in 2019, and when I was working there, they were transitioning over to be a part of the Parks and Recs like conglomerate or cohort, because they were a non-for-profit all by themselves, but they were working within a Parks and Recs facility, and so they were transferring over. So with that transfer over, that was the first time that they introduced minority inclusion into their hiring process, and so I was actually one of the first Black uh, interns that they had ever hired. And my manager told me once I got there that the only reason they hired me was because they put in that minority inclusion. He said that my interview was awesome, my resume was awesome, like I was a great candidate, but I got pushed for so hard because I was Black. And that kind of just shocked me, because a lot of the kids that were there interning with me were either doing it just because they knew their parent or someone they knew worked within the system and got them the internship and they just did it as an experience, or they just wanted to try something new. And I'm looking at all these kids that like kind of don't know all the information, but they're just learning as they go, and they did an awesome job of learning as they go, but I was the only one who knew the information from the get-go. And for me to be the only one to know that information, and for me to be the first Black person that they accepted, it really opened my eyes to how inclusive this environment is, especially to Black females. I already knew I was going to have a challenge being a female, but being Black on top of that makes it so much harder. And thankfully, like when I was growing up, I did not have a lot of support from like outside world. I used to go to like networking events in the city for marine scientists and STEM, and there were donors there that were like fully marine scientists, groundbreaking marine scientists who've made impacts in the environment. Being like, wow, that's so cool. Can you swim? Can I swim? Yeah, I'm here. Like, I understand that, like, there's that misconception about Black people having a fear of water, but it just shocked me so much. I'm in this room with marine scientists, STEM people in STEM, and they're asking me, wow, can you swim? That's so cool. I didn't know someone like you would be in this space. And stuff like that, like it discourages people from moving in this space, and it discourages people from actually getting somewhere and reaching their goals or reaching their aspirations. And so I hear a lot of people, whenever I say I'm a marine scientist, they say, wow, that's so cool. I always wanted to do that when I was a kid, but then I gave up. And it breaks my heart sometimes because it's like they give up because they don't have that support. They give up because they don't have that belief in themselves because it was never put out in the world. It was also never shown to them that someone like them could be a marine scientist.
I mean, that's part of the reason I made this platform is because I've heard similar things, and it's almost you hear what's happening to you, and you think about the people that like I say overqualified and underrepresented because like everything that's going on, but there's no one in there that really looks like you doing that. So that's that's really interesting. And to go with that, I wonder how do people that live in a city care about environmental issues? Like, so say for instance in urban settings, like people that are living in New York, are they very conscious of the stuff going on in the environment the same way somebody living in Florida would be, or California, or someone who experiences that every day? Because I just want to know. I've never heard of a city person's viewpoint on this.
Yeah. So we have a lot of initiatives, and I will say, when I was younger, I didn't see the support in the environment, and I feel like I always felt like I was the only one advocating for the city. And a lot of the mindset, unfortunately, of New Yorkers is it's a dump already, so why am I going to be the only one to change it? But as like the progression of the mindset of America in general has moved, and the mindset of taking care of the environment and understanding that we only get one earth and how important it is to keep our animals and our environment safe. I think that the mindset has changed. But when I was younger, I would see like maybe one or two trash cans per every 3 blocks. And a block in New York City is so much different from a block in any other city or state. A block is like 2 to 3 normal people blocks. So it's like, it's crazy. Just like, I know trash is just one of the environmental impacts that New York City has, but it's something that's so big because it makes such a difference when you see trash cans. And now what you see in New York, which I absolutely love, is you see a compostable trash can and then you see a trash can. So you have a actual trash for debris, and then they have on the trash can what you can put in the compost trash bin. And then what they do with that compost is they will donate that compost to city parks. So they may grow more vegetation and things in the parks for people to enjoy and also use. One of the things that New York City has been doing as an initiative is making a greener environment. And so in a lot of the community parks and even in a lot of the city parks that are open to the public, you'll see radishes and like cabbage growing on the side. And to a regular New York City person, like you're like, oh, that's just vegetation that looks a little funky. But then if you know what you're looking at, you're like, is that cabbage just growing in Central Park? It's just so cool to like see the difference from when I was growing up to what's happening now. So there is a change and there is an impact that's happening. And that is literally from people that were my age that were looking at the same New York City that I was looking at and saying, what can we do different? What can we do for the next generation so that we can have Central Park look like what Central Park looks like? We can have these environments that look beautiful. We can have these trees that look vibrant. Because when I was growing up, I did not see as much trees in general on the sidewalks. You'd see maybe one tree every 2 blocks. And it was just so sad because it's like you have this huge city that has so many people living in it. We need to take care of this city. We need to take care of the environment. We need to understand that there are some environmental effects that we can't change and we just have to work around them. For example, Manhattan is sinking. There's
Mm.
unfortunately really nothing we can do about it. It's been sinking for a while because of how much weight in buildings and structures we put on it. But we can change that by implementing different different strategies, like having more drains for floods, having more access for boats. So we may use that environment once it unfortunately sinks.
Mhm. I see, and I mean, I always think it's so interesting seeing the people who live in an area and how they treat what they live in, because I like to compare it to I lived in Pennsylvania, I lived in Texas, Florida, and then being in California and being to different countries, you see how people treat their country and treat their environment and it giving back to them versus not. And I remember living in Texas and people didn't really give a damn about the environment. I would see people littering, throwing trash out of the cars, all kinds of stuff. But seeing that in Florida and California, it was people weren't doing that because they care about it. And one of the big things about those places is their economy is based off people coming in and, oh, this place is beautiful, it's fun, we're spending money to come here, all that kind of stuff. So that's why I was wondering about New York, because I know you're not necessarily going to New York just to look at critters and all that stuff. You're doing for the nightlife and, go to a Knicks game, like things like that. So I wondered if, when it's not tied to your livelihood, how much people actually care about the environment. So thank you for sharing that. And I'm glad to hear that because I just never knew for sure. I never lived in a big city like that for an extended period of time.
Oh, of
So
course.
yeah, one of the big things I'm really excited to ask you about is about being a mermaid performer. I mean, I just want to give you the floor. How did that happen? What's going on with that? Tell me it all.
So this goes back to being a black nerd because your girl thought that it was legit a thing to be a mermaid. I used to tell people when I was younger, before I even, like, I knew I wanted to be a marine scientist since I was 11, but I knew I was going to be a mermaid since I was like 5. It was like I was in the bathroom, little 5-year-old me doing the potions, telling the universe what tail I want, what power I want. I was in too deep for my own good. And then as I grew up, I realized that there was an actual community that celebrated being a mermaid and celebrated what that meant. And there's two different sides of the community, which both sides are awesome. There's a side that does it as a creative outlet to just be one with the ocean and free and feel that connection with Mother Nature. And then there's that side that uses environmental science and mermaiding and the mystical magic of mermaiding to draw people into caring about the environment and what that means. And so, a little bit about me as a mermaid. You can kind of take on a persona. So, my name is Mary Shell, and I'm a river mermaid. And so, what I do to educate kids when I have programs and when I have parties, is I'll put on my tail, and my tail is part of me, and I go out in the wheelbarrow, and it's a magical experience, and I go in the water, I swim around, and I'm so magical. And then I come out with all of these doodads and flock blocks and all of these things I found. It's trash that I found on the beach that I've made into art. And so I will bring that art with me to parties and events, and I will show these kids all of these precious treasures that I found on the beach. And sometimes I have those kids that are like, that's not a treasure, that's a bottle cap. And I'm like, well, I found it on the beach. It's a treasure to me, and I made it into an earring. And then they're like, that's so cool. And it's this whole invigorating experience for them, where after they want to go on the beach and they want to find trash so they can make their own treasures and they can make their own art. And it becomes this whole movement where they feel like they can be a citizen science and they can go and clean up the environment for themselves to make it look better. And then you have those kids that get into the magic with me, and they ask me all these questions about, is Sebastian your friend? What do you do with the animals? And I love those questions because I tell kids, depending on how old they are, I tell them that a magic sea witch cursed me. And that's why sometimes I have legs, but I was always meant to be a mermaid. And what I do when I'm on land is I'm a marine biologist. And then when I'm in the water, I go and talk to my friends so I can make sure they're all okay. And that's the connection I use to merge those two interests and those two passions I have. And so I'm a mermaid, but I'm a marine scientist mermaid. So every time I put that tail on, I am now a pillar for the ocean. I am now an advocate for the ocean. And when I take that tail off, I'm an advocate for the environment. I'm an advocate for educating people about how awesome the environment is and how magical the environment can actually be. And I think the awesome thing about it is when kids and adults ask me about like how I got into this, I literally told them, I'm like, I jumped in the ocean and fell in love. And I never wanted to leave. So I decided to become a mermaid. Because if I can't live there, maybe I'll just pretend I lived there for a little bit.
So how does it actually work? Like you doing the performances and being in the shows? I mean, I've seen clips on Instagram, whatever, the girls pulling down the stuff and breathing in some and then going back down and then the tail. Like I can't imagine swimming in a tail like that because for me personally, I'm not that great at swimming right now.
Mhm.
Like I'm so used to my fins. Like I suck at swimming normally because I'm so reliant on my fins now. How swimming in that tail and not drowning and dealing with all that stuff? Because I'm used to having a tank on my back and I don't know how you do it. Tell me. Yeah, like what's
So I
up?
feel that I have my scientific diving degree, so I absolutely love diving. Just memories of love and life and being down there. But I started diving as a free diver. So I used to go to Trinidad back home pretty much every summer. And so one of my favorite things when I went to Trinidad was to go to a notable beach called Maracas Beach. And one of the biggest things about that beach is it's called Wipeout Beach, and it's a nickname. And it's because they have huge tidal waves that come over. And so what I started doing as a young age is we would ride the waves. And so what that looks like is you'll see a big wave coming and you dive straight into the wave and go straight under the crash right before it crashes. So the wave will push you forward and the water comes back on your body. And so I am a self-taught diver, free diver. And so most of my techniques are just figuring it out myself, which that's most of my life is, oh, I don't know how to do that. Let me figure out how to do it. So I started freediving from a really young age, worked on techniques, I worked on breath exercises. And so I became very understanding of what my body needs when it's under the water and how it feels under the water. And so most of freediving is getting your brain into that mindset and getting your breath down to that level where you can actually breathe underwater and you can actually go past that block where your brain is like, we're underwater, we can't breathe. You just have to push past that block and tell yourself, I can breathe. I just need to calm my body down. I need to slow my heart rate. I need to do all the things to get my body into that mind state so I can take those small breaths and extend my lung to the point where I can swim far. So currently I can only swim about, I think, 7 to 8 feet under the water. But I'm working on it. But I have never done the it's called a hookah dive when you blow with the tube. So I've never done that. Do want to experience it, but I do all of my mermaid shows completely free diving. And even before I got a tail, I would practice how to maneuver my body within the water without the tail. And so I've been doing it for so long that it kind of feels like second nature to me. And I like to believe that in my past life, I was a mermaid. So I don't really need to work too much because this is just going back to my old memories.
So do you want to explain what free diving is to our audience? I'm sure not everyone in here doesn't know about it. I mean, I'm a free diver as well, but I'd love to hear you explain it to someone who's never seen anyone do it before.
Oh, of course. So what freediving is basically you are using your lung capacity to kind of go within depths. And so it was a tradition that started with indigenous people, and it was originally a way of life and still a way of life in some countries to get food. And so what they would do is dive down. People who are experienced can dive down like 20 to 30 meters, which is crazy. But you can dive down, just use your breath exercises and use that. It's a good meditation work to kind of keep your mind in that, like, keep your body in that mindset where you're going down into the water and keeping your breath nice and calm. And you're kind of blowing out short breaths. So you're not using all of your lung capacity all at one time. So it's really helpful to just do some breath exercises before, do some chest and rib compressions so you can keep your lungs nice and strong. And then you're just using your mind and body to kind of make your way down.
I'm so glad you actually brought up free diving because that's actually my favorite kind of diving. I was actually my deepest I've been able to go is 25 feet, and I know for some people that's not crazy, but for me that was insane. I really enjoy it. That's some because it feels like regular diving's obviously fun. It's more relaxing, and you're just kind of chilling. You're breathing. You're seeing stuff. But free diving to me always felt like a sport, like almost like I'm sprinting and like I'm testing myself. And I've always loved it. Like I learned to do it in French Polynesia, and then I freed over to shipwreck in Bali like this summer, and it was the coolest thing ever. Like getting down to like 20 something and like putting my head on a coral, like it was the coolest thing ever. And I love free diving so much, and I have so much respect for people who can do it. People that go down to 60, 70 meters and all this crazy stuff like that. It's so insane that people can go down that deep and do that stuff.
Oh no, definitely. I want to be you when I grow up. I want to go to a shipwreck.
Oh no, I want to be like you. I want to be a mermaid. So I guess I'll be a merman. I guess I can be a mermaid too. We can both
No,
be mermaids.
I mean merman, mermaid, whatever your choice is. I like to say the only difference is that mermaids are like kind of just the free flowing. Mermen are more like I'm trying to be Trident. I'm trying to be King Trident, just sitting and posing.
Okay, so you talked a lot about inclusivity in marine science and getting more people in it. What things do you think would you like to see change in marine science, and what ways do you think that we can make it more inclusive to people that look like me and you around the world?
One of the things that I fell in love with at a really young age was coding. And I think that a lot of people don't realize how important coding and technology, especially in this day and age, is to STEM in general and marine science. We're using a lot more technology in our field. And so educating young scientists about technology as well as marine science, I think it would be really helpful for the future generation, as well as just being mindful of who's in your space. Because growing up, I did a lot of different environmental science and environmental conservation programs. My mom was really proactive about putting me in every and anything that I could get into that was in my field. I remember sometimes waking up at like 7 or 6 in the morning, and she's like, "Get up, get dressed. You're going to blah 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 to go code." And I'm like, "Why?" But I thank her so much for it now because I have so much experience and I can say that I know Ruby Red and I can code a program and I it helps me, like, especially with GitHub. Like I don't think I think I would have died in GitHub without learning coding. And so using technology to our benefit, as well as like looking at the people who work in your space and seeing how you can interact with them in a like more friendly and environmental way. Because I think the divide between the general population of uh, people not of color and people of color, I think we're divided within the space, and we need to come together to really form a inclusive and welcoming environment for the new scientists coming in.
Can you explain more about what GitHub is? I mean, I just made an account on there today to put some of my coding stuff, and I'm not even fully familiar what you do with that website.
So, still working it out myself, but it is an amazing platform where you can put all of your research. It's kind of like a portfolio space. So, you can put all of your research and you can also put all of your census and surveyor information on there. And so, all of that, it kind of works. So, you're able to see your own portfolio, but you're also able to see other people's portfolio. So, it's a really good way of networking with other people and getting to see what they're working on, as well as what if it intertwines with what you're working on.
Okay, that's sweet. I gotta go back to the free diving for one more second. Did you know about the only time you're gonna pass out is when you start to pee on yourself. Did you know that?
It's kind of a funny story because so I growing up I went to Trinidad all the time, and that's where I learned most of my freediving, but I was still a kid, so I couldn't go but so far out into the ocean because Black people in general are very, very much worrywarts, especially my aunt and my uncle. They were like, don't go too far. If I can't see you, you're too far. But like Caribbean people are on that extra, like, kind of, I'm so sorry. Caribbean people are kind of on that extra stance where they're like, you gotta go where your feet touch the ground. I don't want to see you floating anywhere. So when I went back to Trinidad as an adult, I was able to go out with my older cousins, and one of my cousins also free dives, and he lives in Trinidad, so he knew all of the small cove spots and everywhere that we could go. And so we actually went to this small, like, it was like an old abandoned dock, and under the dock were a bunch of like coral reefs and oyster farms and stuff like that. And so it was a really cool environment to go to. So he took me over there, and I think to get to like where the big hotspot of the wildlife was about like I think 15 to 20 meters down. And so he went down no problem, and I went down and I didn't prep right when I was like up, I didn't take a big enough breath to go down. And so I went like almost to that reaching point where I was like, I'm about to pass out. And so like I shot back up, and he was like staring at me going up. He's like, you didn't take a breath, did you? I was like, no, I didn't. I was about to die. Like, not really, but like I was like, I'm gonna tail it out of here before I start going down. But it was a great experience. I got to see a little foulfish go past me and look at me like, silly human, before I went back up. So it was a cool experience regardless. I think that's so
Yeah,
funny that you brought that up, because that's one of like the first times I've heard that. I told that to a couple of people who I free dive with, and they're like, "Wow, that's interesting. I'll be sure to know that next time."
yeah. I kid you not. When I learned in Polynesia, the guy who was teaching me chemo, he was showing me how to go down. He was showing me how to go down and put this dissolved oxygen meter on there for one of his projects. And it's like, yeah, just hold your breath, go down. And he's like, hey man, as long as you don't pee on yourself, you'll be okay. Like when you hit that point, shoot up as fast as you can because you're gonna pass out. But as long as you're not peeing, you're good. So I was like, okay. That's like my motto. As long as you're not peeing, you're good. So I just keep going and keep going. And but I love it. It's just so much fun. And I want to get more of the technical stuff and some of the stuff you're working on. I've heard you talk a lot about sharks and coral and just your research you're doing. How has that research been going, and what are your current projects you're working on?
So currently, I am at a research stop. After I graduated, I was able to have the opportunity to work with a grad student when I was in school, on a research project that she was doing in the Maldives. And so, unfortunately, I didn't get to go to the Maldives to see the corals with her, but she brought all her pictures back, and I was able to do some just JPEG graphing on all of the diseased, dead, and healthy corals. And so we were able to see which areas were doing better than others, why they were doing better than others. So that really gauged my interest in coral research. And so further in the future, I would love to make my way over to Costa Rica and work with them, because they have a bunch of amazing opportunities where they do coral reef like restoration as well as shark research. And so putting those two interests together would be my dream job, if you would say. But I'm really interested in working with just like the behavior and the biodiversity within sharks, and learning a little bit more about the different behaviors within the different species, as well as working on what their environmental impacts are when they go around coral reefs.
Okay, favorite shark right now. Go.
Short fin make. Didn't
Wow.
have to think about it. Love them.
Wow.
They're so
You
cute.
like them fast, huh?
47 miles per hour, I think. 47 miles per hour. That's a fast girl.
My favorite is the Port Jackson. I like their little stubby face. I think they're
They're
very cute. They're
so
my
cute.
favorite.
Them and the wobblegongs.
Yeah,
I'm like, you
yeah,
guys steal my heart every single time.
yeah. I'm gonna have to stick some pictures up on the YouTube video for this so people can see what we're talking about. Because they're probably like, "What are you going on? What is that? What the hell? What the hell is a wobblegong?" I'm sure that's what my parents are gonna be saying. So yeah, so I know you just talked about sharks and coral. So what particularly about studying them is important to you, and what about them shows you their significance in marine ecosystems? Because I mean, I know and you know that they're very important, but what about them is significant to you?
So, my interest from with elasmobranchs started when I was really young. I knew from a really young age that I wanted to work with them, just because I grew up on the age of Jaws and Deep Blue Sea and all of those movies that are out there to watch. And so, one of the interesting things about sharks in media is they're always the bad guy. They're always the villain. But why I bring up Jaws and Deep Blue Sea in particular is because that shark was the bad guy, but not necessarily. People invaded their space and they just fought back. And so I really want people to understand that we're invading their home and they're just trying to live their lives. I always tell people that sharks are the cats of the sea, so they can really understand where I'm coming from with that. Like, when you think about a cat, like, they're just there. They're just in your space, living their lives. They got separate lives. They got separate problems going on. Like, you're just here in their environment. And if you go mess with them, they're gonna mess with you back. And that is really the only time that a shark is gonna actually go after a person is when you're poking the bear. And it's funny to think about it because the largest amount of shark attacks come from nurse sharks. And
Hmm.
I know for people who don't know what we're talking about, nurse sharks are bottom dwellers. They have really soft teeth. And the only reason that they're the biggest like record of shark attacks is because we put ourselves in that environment. There are a lot of there are a lot of Caribbean countries that have like nurse shark habitats where they use them like it's an enticing excursion for them where you can go swim with the sharks, and it's such a cool environment until someone goes and pokes this shark. And they figure out why you don't poke the bear. And so just taking that misconception of sharks are dangerous and sharks are scary and turning it into sharks are so cute and they're just misunderstood. And they're such an awesome keystone species that needs to be appreciated and understood, and just giving that understanding to them. And one of the things that I found so cool when working at the New York Aquarium was that they had a list of things that were more possible to happen to you than a shark attack right next to the shark. So it was like, you're more likely to get struck by lightning twice than to get bitten by a shark. You're more likely to have a vending machine fall on you
Yeah,
and
the vending machine one.
demise and be bitten by a shark. And I just thought that was so, like, so helpful, and just like keys to the technicians who thought about that, because like just something as simple as thinking about all the things that can happen to you besides getting eaten by a shark is really helpful for people to understand and like rework their brain on what sharks are and who they are in the environment and how important they are to our ecosystem.
I'm still laughing at Deep Blue Sea because man, my daddy loves that damn movie. He loves it. He loves like trying to get my mama to watch the scary stuff and all that. So it's just I've seen that movie a bunch of times and he just loves that one. Yeah, and I think about like especially with sharks and the times I've spent even being with them in the wild is I mean, the scariest thing to me is I've scared sharks myself. Like I'm swimming in Polynesia
Yeah.
working and I'm swimming around the coral and we're both I'm going, I'm just going straight. You see the shark just going and I'm looking to my left and I'm like, what's that swimming next to me? And then I look to my left and me and the shark both see each other and spook each other and swim the other way. And so it's like a little black tip, but that's like and people ask me like, oh, what are your experience with sharks? And that's pretty much what it is. They see you and then we both come around the corner and see each other at the
What?
in the in the reef and scare each other and it's just it's funny and we're like bumping each other like, "Ooh, I didn't see you there. Keep going away." So it's just
Yeah.
that's what I think is funny is people don't really understand how that they're really just animals like anything else. Like they're more scared of you than you're scared of them. You know, I know how corny and cheesy it is. People are like, yeah, right, whatever, whatever. But that's really what it is. And people that usually get bit and all that stuff are either are messing with them or that. I mean, that's usually what it is. They're messing with them.
I think it's so funny because when working at the Virginia Aquarium, we had a ray touch pool, and so you were able to touch. We had a southern ray in there, an Atlantic stingray. They had just gotten a guitar fish. He was so freaking cute, and then we had some cownose rays in there. And so the biggest question I got, besides the general questions, was which one of these killed Steve
Steve
Irwin.
Irwin.
And I'm like, first of all, guys, Steve Irwin was a trained professional, and even he had to watch out for these animals. And the only reason that it hit him so hard, it wasn't because of the actual sting of the ray. It was just where the position was, and he accidentally stepped on it. And their only defense mechanism is that barb. And so
Hmm.
I like to bring that up when people ask me, is because it's so important to understand that they're not scary. They're awesome animals as well, and they even get a bad rep just because of that one incident. And just
Oh
reworking
yeah.
people's brain on like what these animals are and what their impacts are in the environment is so helpful. And understanding like although that was an unfortunate event, it's a good place to kind of give people that understanding of how important these animals are and how even that was an accident that Steve Irwin, like in the person he was, he would have been like, it wasn't his fault. He's fine.
Yeah.
He's still an awesome. He's an awesome Ray. Like, and I think that's so funny because like when you talk to another marine scientist, um, they're always like, these animals are so cool. Like, I don't even care if I got bit by a shark. I don't even care if a ray stung me. I don't even care if I stepped on an urchin and their quills got in my foot. They're cool. Like, it's just like spreading that like energy and that love for the animals and not caring like if something happens to you when you're in their space and spreading that energy to other people. I think is so helpful and so enriching. And that's something that I love to do, like just breaking the misconceptions that people have about all animals.
Okay, speaking of giving the energy, you're giving great energy today. I'm really glad we have you.
Thank
And
you.
so we got like one last question for you, one last thing. And this is kind of a combo, so I really want to hear what you're thinking about this. And so what I'm wondering is what do you think is the most important message that the general public should understand about ocean conservation? So I know you've worked in both research realms and public outreach. And also, what advice would you give to aspiring marine biologists and scientists, especially ones from backgrounds like ours? What would you give them entering the field? Like, what would you want them to know? What would you want them to find out for themselves? Yeah, pretty much that's it.
Okay, so I'm gonna answer your first question. For the general public, ask those questions. Be a citizen scientist. See what you can do in your own space. If you're in a city or you're in a suburban or rural area, see what you can do in your environment to help. Because even though you feel like you're the only one doing something, you are the only one doing something in your space. There's someone else a few blocks away from you that is thinking the same thing. And once you show that you're a leader in your space and you're, even if it just starts with just picking up some trash as you walk across the street, someone else will see that and they will start doing the same thing. And you will be an act of change. And so be that act of change for other people to follow and really, really talk to the plants and love the environment that you're in, because that environment gives you life and it gives you beauty. And so appreciate the environment that you live in and just like really take in that space and see how you can help the environment be better so it can help you be better. And then for people in the space looking to break down in environmental science or environmental conservation, just again, ask the questions that no one else is asking. Be the person that is always happy to help. That is something that I've carried through all of my experiences and all of my careers is like, I am always happy to help, and I'm always happy to be that person to go the extra mile. And people see that and they really appreciate it, and they will think about you when they're looking for those big projects, when they're looking for someone to help them with that cool, awesome excursion that only a few people are going to go on. They're going to look for you because they know you're going to be there to help. So be that person that's sticking out, be that sore thumb that's being a positive change in your environment. And that's how you get farther in this field. And then don't hesitate to ask questions and go to see people and network with people and just talk to anybody and everybody, because you never know who that person knows or who that person is. So I've gotten so much opportunities from people that I've just like talked to on the street because I was just being curious. And so it's like, I know that some people are introverts and like it's scary, and even I am a social butterfly, but I still have social anxiety. But sometimes you just got to give yourself that extra push so you can make your future better. So just make sure you're being that sore thumb and light of space in your
All right, thank you so much, everybody. That's
environment.
Tasia. She was great. I mean, I wish we could talk more, but I'm cooking in this closet right now. It's so hot in here. I hope everyone's staying cool and having a great time. Thank you so much for listening. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you all for tuning into another episode of Black Nerds Matter. None of this is possible without you, our listeners. A special thank goes out to our music team. On guitar is Graham Hempstead, who can be found with his name on any of your favorite streaming platforms, and our sound engineer, Brian, who can be found on TikTok at brian.tyler.music. Thanks everyone for listening.